You're always told to be careful who you talk to online, but you never think it'll happen to you. I'm here to tell you, it can. One click, one message with a stranger, and I had a new friend. A friend I thought got me, right up until the night he followed me home. It's a weird kind of silence that fills a one-bedroom apartment on a Tuesday night. It isn't peaceful. It's heavy. The kind of quiet that presses in on you, making the hum of the refrigerator sound deafening and every distant car feel like it's right outside your window. It makes you feel incredibly alone. That was my life. A long string of quiet nights, with only the glow of a computer screen for company. My name is Alex, and before this, I was just another guy in a dead-end data entry job, making just enough for rent and cheap ramen. My world was tiny, just my apartment and the endless, sprawling, and fake-friendly world of the internet. I wasn't some recluse who couldn't function. I made small talk with people at work. I could order coffee without a problem. But a real connection? A true friend? That felt like a language I'd never learned. My conversations were all on the surface, short and shallow, and they always left me feeling empty. So, I went where I felt comfortable, online. At first, it was the usual stuff: video games, movie forums, Reddit threads about unsolved mysteries. But the loneliness didn't go away. It got worse. It was a hunger that the normal internet, with its perfect Instagram lives and fake happiness, couldn't fix. I started looking for something more, something real. I started exploring the deeper, murkier corners of the web. Not because I was looking for trouble, but because I wanted something authentic. I figured in the places where people drop the act, I might finally find a genuine connection. That's how I found the forum. It wasn't the dark web, not really, but it was one of those fringe, invite-only sites, a relic of the old internet. It was stark, all black and gray, and the conversations were intense. Philosophy, nihilism, controversial art, all the stuff you can't talk about in polite company. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't the only one who saw the cracks in everything. I just watched from the sidelines for weeks, reading. And then I saw a thread that felt like it was written for me. The emptiness of modern connection. I spent an hour writing my reply, pouring out all the frustration and loneliness I'd kept bottled up for years. I wrote about the suffocating quiet, the feeling of being a ghost in my own life. I hit post and instantly regretted it. It was too much, too raw. I figured I'd be ignored or made fun of. A few hours later, a private message popped up from a user named Silas. "I read your post," it said. "I've never seen anyone put it into words so perfectly. It's like you pulled them right out of my head." My heart pounded. It was such a simple message, but it was the most validation I'd felt in years. I wrote back, "Thank you, I'm glad someone understood." His reply was almost instant. "Understood? I feel like I'm living it. Maybe we're two ghosts haunting the same machine." And just like that, with that one perfect poetic line, I was hooked. I had no idea I was typing my way into a nightmare. My new best friend was waiting in the wings, learning the shape of my life, the depth of my loneliness, and the exact words I needed to hear. The trap was set. All I had to do was walk right into it. Finding Silas was like finding an oasis. We talked for hours, every single day. He said he was in Europe, in a different time zone, but was always vague on the details. It didn't matter. One of us was always awake, always there. Our conversations went from bleak philosophy to the smallest details of our lives. He told me he was a freelance archivist for old libraries, a job that sounded both romantic and lonely, a perfect fit for the guy I was talking to. He'd talk about lonely nights surrounded by forgotten books, feeling like a caretaker for dead ideas. It all hit so close to home. In return, I told him everything. I told him about my sterile office job, the buzz of the fluorescent lights, the coworkers I saw every day but didn't really know. I told him about my failed dates, my anxieties, my dream of being a writer. He was an amazing listener. He never judged, never gave me cheesy advice. He just got it. He'd ask these sharp questions, bringing up something I'd said in passing days ago, proving he was actually listening. "You have a writer's soul, Alex," he messaged one night after I shared a story idea. "You see the world in textures and shadows. Most people just see the surface." Praise like that was a drug, and I was starving for it. I started to need his validation. His opinion started to matter more than my own. I'd watch a movie and wonder, what would Silas think of this? If I had a bad day, I couldn't wait to get home and tell him all about it, so he could reframe it with his dark intelligence and make me feel like I was above it all. He didn't just make me feel seen, he made me feel special. He built this little world for just the two of us, a secret club against the boring rest of the world. We had inside jokes and our own private language. He'd send me links to obscure bands or forgotten films, things that felt like they were picked just for me. Our friendship became the center of my universe. The ache of loneliness was gone, replaced by the constant happy buzz of a new message from Silas. My real life started to fade away. I stopped trying to make small talk at work. I turned down a rare invitation for drinks. Why would I suffer through awkward conversation when I could be talking to the one person on earth who truly understood me? My apartment wasn't a lonely box anymore. It was our place. The monitor glow was our campfire. I was happy. I was completely, expertly being groomed, and I was grateful for it. He was building my trust, one brick at a time, laying a foundation he could later use to tear my world apart. He was becoming my everything, which meant that when he decided to take it all away, there'd be nothing left. The shift was so subtle, I almost didn't notice it. It started with this low-key possessiveness disguised as concern. If I took a few hours to reply because I was at the store or asleep, I'd come back to a string of messages. Alex? You there? Everything okay? Just checking in. Got worried when you went quiet. At first, I thought it was sweet. Someone actually cared enough to notice I was gone. I'd apologize and explain, and he'd be immediately reassuring. No, it's fine. I just value our conversations. The silence gets loud, you know? And I did. He was using my own words, my own loneliness, against me. Then came the first real jolt. I was having a terrible day. My boss was on my case, the commute was awful, and I was ranting to Silas. I typed that I was going to head out to that little coffee shop on Miller Street to get away from my apartment. It was a local spot I loved. I'd never mentioned its name to him before. His reply came a second later. The one with the green awning and the wobbly table in the corner? Good choice. Their espresso is mediocre, but the atmosphere is worth it. I froze. My fingers just hovered over the keyboard. Miller Street is a common name. It had to be a coincidence. He was in Europe. There was no way. How did you know that? I typed, my heart starting to race. His response was smooth. You'd be surprised what you can find with a little creative Googling. You've mentioned your neighborhood. A quick search of coffee shops in the area, a look at some street view images. It's a fun little puzzle. A way to feel closer, you know? To picture where you are. His explanation almost made sense. It was creepy, sure, but he framed it like it was an act of intimacy. And because I was so desperate for our friendship to be real, I chose to believe him. I pushed down the knot of dread in my stomach and told myself it was sweet. I ignored the fact that it was also a sign of his investment in me as a target. The red flags started piling up. He'd get moody if I mentioned spending time with anyone else. A colleague invited me to a movie, and I mentioned it to Silas. He went radio silent for an hour, then sent one message. Hope you have fun with your real friends. The guilt hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I'd cheated on him. I made an excuse and canceled on my colleague, then spent the evening reassuring Silas he was my only true friend. I was isolating myself, and he was holding the door for me. The point of no return came on my birthday. I hadn't told him when it was, but of course he knew. I got a message that morning. Happy birthday, Alex. I know you hate celebrating, but I wanted to do something for you. Check your front door. Ice shot through my veins. This was different from a Google search. This was real life. I crept to my door and looked through the peephole. Nothing. I hesitantly opened it. On my doormat was a small, neatly wrapped package. No shipping label, no postmark. Someone had put it there. My hands were shaking as I snatched it inside and tore it open. Inside was a first edition copy of a rare book of poetry we'd talked about weeks ago. Tucked inside the cover was a handwritten note. I told you I was a good archivist. Some things are worth hunting down. I just sank onto the sofa. My mind was screaming. How did he get my address? How did he get this to my door? He was supposed to be on another continent. I messaged him, my words a complete mess. Silas, how? How did you get my address? Again, the explanation was unnervingly casual. Relax, Alex. It wasn't black magic. I have a friend who travels for work who was passing through your state. I had the book sent to him and asked him to drop it off. I got your address the same way I found the coffee shop. It's all public record if you know where to dig. I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to do something nice. He was totally gaslighting me, making my fear seem like an overreaction. And the worst part? It worked. The fear faded, replaced by this twisted gratitude. He had gone to such incredible lengths for me. It wasn't stalking, it was devotion. The gesture was insane, but it was also the grandest gesture anyone had ever made for me. I held the book and told myself I was lucky. I was ignoring the blaring sirens in my head and focusing on the beautiful, impossible gift. I was a frog in a pot of slowly warming water, and he had just cranked up the heat. Looking back, it's so easy to see every red flag I ignored. But the truth is, when someone is telling you everything you've ever wanted to hear, it's almost impossible to see them clearly. We all want to be understood, but that desire for connection is the very thing that can make us so vulnerable. Sometimes, the person who seems to know you best is the one who plans to hurt you the most. After the birthday gift, everything changed. He had crossed a line from the digital world into my physical one, and now that the boundary was gone, he felt entitled to more. His messages became more demanding. He started asking for things. First, a photo. I feel like I know your soul, Alex, but I don't even know your face, he wrote. It feels wrong. Send me a picture, not some old profile pic, something real, right now. I hesitated. I was never comfortable with how I looked. The anonymity was part of the appeal. I'm not very photogenic, I typed back. A weak excuse. His reply was cold. Don't be ridiculous. After everything? After the lengths I've gone to? It's a simple request, Alex. Don't make it a big deal. The message was clear. I owed him. All the conversations, the gift, it was a transaction, and it was time to pay up. The warmth was gone, replaced by a chilling obligation. Afraid of losing the only person I had, I gave in. I took a quick, awkward selfie in my dim apartment and sent it. There, he replied instantly. That wasn't so hard. You have sad eyes. I like them. That compliment didn't soothe me. It made my skin crawl. He wasn't seeing me. He was collecting me. The requests got worse. He wanted my schedule. What time did I leave for work? What route did I take? He framed it as wanting to know when I was free to talk, but it felt like he was building a map of my life. I started lying, changing small details, telling him I was working from home when I wasn't, just to keep a small piece of my life to myself. But somehow, he always seemed to know. Quiet day at home? He'd ask, right when I was in the middle of a meeting. Must be nice. How could he know? Was it a guess? Or something else? Paranoia started to creep in. Was that friend who dropped off the book still around? I started looking over my shoulder on the street. Every unfamiliar car sent a jolt of anxiety through me. The silence in my apartment wasn't heavy anymore. It was menacing. It felt like I was being watched. The final unraveling began with 3 words. I've booked a flight. My blood ran cold. I just stared at the screen. What are you talking about? I wrote. I'm coming to see you, Alex. I've been thinking about it for weeks. This long-distance thing is torture. We need to be in the same room. I'm tired of the screen between us. It's time. Pure panic seized me. This wasn't a question. It was a statement. Silas, you can't, I pleaded. It's not a good time. Work is crazy. My apartment is a mess. The excuses were pathetic, but it's all I had. I don't care about that, he replied. I'm not coming to see your apartment. I'm coming to see you. I already bought the ticket. I land in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks until this digital ghost, this man who knew my address and my schedule, was going to show up on my doorstep. The friendship I treasured now felt like a cage, and the walls were closing in fast. "Please, Silas," I begged. "I'm not ready for this. This is too fast." His response was the most terrifying thing he had ever written. The mask didn't just slip. He tore it off. "It's a little late for that, Alex. You don't get to decide when it's time. I do. I've invested too much in you to let you get shy now. You're mine, whether we've met or not. I'll be there in 2 weeks. Be ready." The words, "you're mine," echoed in my silent apartment. It was a claim of ownership. I wasn't his friend. I was his project, his possession, and the collector was coming to claim his prize. For the next 2 weeks, I lived in a state of pure terror. I barely slept or ate. Every phone notification made me jump. His messages kept coming, but the pretense was gone. He was giving orders. "Make sure you have good coffee. I hope your guest room is clean. I can't wait to see the look on your face." I thought about going to the police, but what would I even say? That a guy I met online was coming to visit? That he sent me a book? They would tell me I was overreacting, that it was a lover's quarrel. They'd tell me to just not open the door. But I knew it wouldn't be that simple. A man who could have a gift hand-delivered wouldn't be stopped by a locked door. The day he was supposed to arrive was a gray, overcast Thursday. I called in sick to work and sat on my couch, just staring at the front door for hours. Every creak of the building made me sick to my stomach. My phone was silent. The not knowing was its own special kind of torture. As evening fell, I started to let myself hope. Maybe it was all a bluff, a final cruel power play. And then I heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Knock, knock, knock. It was patient, confident, the sound of someone who knew I was on the other side. My heart hammered against my ribs. I crept to the door, my whole body trembling, and looked through the peephole. Standing there was a tall, thin man with dark hair slicked back. He wore a long, dark coat, even though it wasn't cold. And he was smiling, but it was all wrong. A thin, tight line that didn't reach his eyes. His eyes, they were dark and empty, and they were staring right at the peephole like he could see me. It was him. It was Silas, and he had followed me home from the internet. My mind was just a screaming void. "Don't open it. Call the police. Now." But I couldn't move. I was frozen. He knocked again, louder this time. "Alex," he called out. His voice was all wrong, not the deep, warm tone I'd imagined, but thin and reedy. "I know you're in there. I didn't come all this way to stand in a hallway. Open the door." It was a command, and a new fear washed over me. What would he do if I didn't? My mind, already worn down by his manipulation, just defaulted to compliance. It seemed easier to open the door than to imagine the alternative. My hand, slick with sweat, turned the deadbolt. The click was deafening. I pulled the door open a crack. He was even more unsettling up close. His skin was pale, almost translucent, but his eyes held me. They were like 2 black holes. His smile widened. "There you are," he said, and before I could react, he pushed the door open, forcing me to stumble back. He moved with a strange grace and brought a cold, cloying smell with him, like old perfume and disinfectant. He stood in the middle of my living room, turning in a slow circle. "So this is the sanctuary," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "It's smaller than I pictured." I was still by the door, my brain unable to form a thought. He held out a beautifully wrapped gift box. "A housewarming gift," he said with that same dead smile. "Go on, open it." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely take it. I fumbled with the ribbon, my fingers numb. I lifted the lid. Inside, on a bed of black tissue paper, were 3 things. First, a blurry photo of me on a park bench, eating a sandwich. I remembered that day, 2 months ago. I'd felt so alone. But I wasn't. He was there, watching me, even then, before we ever spoke. Second, a small, tarnished silver locket. My breath caught. It was my grandmother's. I kept it in a jewelry box in my bedroom dresser. I knew with a certainty that made me want to vomit that if I went into my room, the box would be empty. The third thing made me drop the box. A choked gasp escaped my lips as it all spilled onto the floor. It was a dog collar, a worn red leather collar with a bone-shaped metal tag. Engraved on it was the name Buddy. Buddy was my childhood dog. He vanished from our backyard when I was 10. We thought he'd run away. It was my first real heartbreak, and here was his collar, 30 years later, on my apartment floor. I looked up at Silas, my mind splintering. His face was a blank canvas of cold indifference. "How?" I whispered. "You really are naive, aren't you?" he said, his voice flat. "The forum, the chats, that was just the anesthetic. The real art is the collection. I am a collector, Alex, not of books, of people. I find lonely, broken people, and I study them. I learn their histories, their fears. I learn what makes them tick, and then I learn how to stop the ticking." He took a step toward me. I scrambled backward, tripping over the coffee table and landing hard on the floor. "The photo was easy," he went on, like a professor giving a lecture. "Telephoto lens. Child's play. The locket was a bit more challenging. A bit of old-fashioned lockpicking a few weeks ago while you were at work. I wanted something you thought was safe." He gestured to the collar. "But this is my masterpiece. It proves how long I've been with you, Alex. Long before the internet. Our town wasn't a coincidence. I chose you a long, long time ago. I was just a boy, but I was always a collector. I saw that sadness in your eyes, even then. And Buddy, he was just the first piece of your life that I took. The world spun. My entire life story was a lie. My loneliness wasn't a condition. It was a cage he'd been building for decades. This wasn't a few months of manipulation. It was the final act of a horror story that started when I was a kid. He hadn't just followed me home from the internet. He was already there. "What do you want?" I cried, crab walking away from him. He took another slow step. "Want? I already have what I want. I have your trust. I have your fear. I have your past." He knelt, his face inches from mine. The sweet chemical smell was stronger. It was formaldehyde. "Now, I'm just here to collect the final piece." His hand shot out, not for me, but for the lamp on the end table. He switched it off, plunging the room into darkness. And in the suffocating quiet, I heard him whisper, "Let's not have a screen between us anymore. Primal fear is an amazing motivator." The second the light went out, all my anxiety and passivity burned away. I didn't scream. I didn't have time. I scrambled backward on the floor, and my hand hit the heavy gift box. Without thinking, I grabbed it and hurled it toward his voice. A satisfying thud, a grunt of pain. That was my chance. I surged to my feet and bolted, not for the front door, but for the sliding glass door to my tiny third-floor balcony. My fingers fumbled with the lock as I heard him recovering behind me, hissing, "You're only making this more difficult, Alex." The lock clicked. I threw the door open and scrambled into the cold night air. The drop was at least 30 feet. No escape there. But my neighbor's balcony was just a few feet away. "Help!" I screamed, my voice raw. "Somebody, please, help me!" A light flickered on next door. Silas appeared in the doorway, a dark silhouette. He wasn't rushing. "There's nowhere to go," he said softly. I looked at the 4-foot gap between the balconies. It was a stupid risk, but it was my only chance. With another scream, I took a running start and leaped. My feet hit the edge of the other balcony. I teetered, windmilling my arms, and fell forward, crashing onto the concrete. I heard a door slide open behind me. "Hey, what the hell is going on?" a man yelled. My neighbor, Mr. Henderson. I scrambled up and pointed a shaking finger back at my apartment. "That man, he's in my apartment. Call the police." Mr. Henderson looked past me. Silas was gone. The doorway was empty. "There's no one there," he said, confused. "He was just there. Please, you have to believe me. Call 911. I was hysterical, but my terror must have been convincing, because he disappeared inside, and I heard his urgent voice on the phone. The 10 minutes until the police arrived felt like a lifetime. I stood shivering on my neighbor's balcony, refusing to move, just staring at my dark apartment, waiting for Silas to reappear. But there was nothing. just a terrifying stillness. When the police finally came, they went in with weapons drawn. An officer came out a few minutes later. "The apartment is clear, sir," he said to me. "No one's inside." "But the gift," I stammered. "The box, the collar." He gave me a patient, weary look. "We found a gift box, yes, and a locket. But there was no dog collar, just the box, the locket, and a photo of you in a park." My blood ran cold. He took it. In the chaos, in the dark, he took the one piece of evidence that proved how deep this went. Without it, I was just a guy with a story about a bad online date, a guy who got scared. They found no sign of a break-in. He knew exactly what he was doing, what to leave and what to take. He'd made me sound crazy. It's been 6 months. The police took my statement. They have the username Silas and my vague description, but he's a ghost. The IP addresses were rerouted through a dozen countries. The friend who delivered the book doesn't exist. No flight records. He was never real, and yet he was the most real thing in my life. I moved out the next day. I live in a different city now, under a different name. I have no social media. My laptop stays closed. The internet, my old sanctuary, now feels like a hunting ground. They never found him. Sometimes I try to convince myself it was all in my head, a breakdown from loneliness. But then I'll see a tall, thin man in a dark coat, and my heart will stop. Every knock on the door makes me freeze. Every time I smell something sweet and chemical, I'm right back in that dark room. He didn't kill me. He didn't even really hurt me, not physically. But he destroyed my life. He took my sense of safety, my past, and my ability to trust anyone, including myself. He's still out there. I know it. And I know I wasn't his first collection. I won't be his last. You're always told to be careful online. Please take that seriously. Loneliness is a powerful weapon in the wrong hands. They'll learn your weaknesses, tell you everything you want to hear, and build you a beautiful cage. They will make you feel understood, right up until the moment they follow you home. Don't make my mistake. Be careful. You never know who's really on the other side of the screen.